Welcome to Blunt Advice, the short form show that delivers cannabis industry insight and information in quick hits to help you operate your cannabis on a higher level. Here are your blunt hosts, Francesca and Mike.
Well, it is Croptober, everyone, and what that tells me is you're probably not going to watch this video until December or January because you're out in the fields busting ass.
Yeah.
But when you do get to watch this video, I think it's going to be really important. And I think it's going to be important from a couple different ways because you've done this great work, you've grown great product, now you gotta sell it. And this is a real problem, and it's a real confusing area for a lot of people that don't deal with sales on a day-to-day. So what we want to do today is give you some blunt advice on how to create a simple sales process to get your product into the hands of retail stores around your state.
Right. So this is for producers that of any size,
Right.
anywhere, can use this advice.
Yep.
So.
To me, there's three parts to this.
Okay.
And the first two lead to actually the third one. So the first one for me always is understand what it is you're selling on this.
Yeah, that would be kind of important. I feel like you need to know that, but say more.
Say more, I will. What in terms of like, what really, really, honestly are you selling in terms of the product itself, the quality, and the price you want to achieve for it? Because I think a lot of people don't have a realistic view of that. And that leads to a lot of problems in actually selling the product. Because then when you go to the store, either your price it's more of the times you think it's worth more than what the buyer thinks it's worth. So that causes a lot of frustration on both ends. So I think really having a realistic view of what you have versus competition is really where the rubber meets the road. Because if everybody's top end, you've got to be there too if you want to be playing in that price point. If you're happy being low to mid, not a problem. There's stores that want that. Yeah, but I think there needs to be consistency and a good understanding for that.
Yeah, so like you need to know what you're growing, period. Like in terms of like objectively speaking, as objective as labs can be. You know, you need to know honestly what you're going to be providing the market.
Yep.
And then you have to look at the competition that is providing the same thing to that market and say, where are they priced? How are they selling? And where do you want to be? You don't want to always compete on price. You're also looking at their brand. You're looking at their overall quality. Who are they trying to market to? And that should inform more about the, you know, what you're actually selling. So your pre-rolls, how are they different than the other pre-rolls that are stocked everywhere?
Right, and that leads you to understanding what's your point of differentiation. Like what makes you unique? What's gonna make someone want to select your product over the other ones that's right next to it on the shelf?
Yeah.
So that kind of competitive intel, that's just going out and going to stores and doing some legwork. And that's something that a lot of people skip that step and just say, here's what I've got. And that doesn't really work.
They're focused so inward, understandably so. I mean, they're busting ass on your own. If you're busting ass on your own grow, then, you know, do you really have time to shop and evaluate? The answer is you got to make time to know what you're selling.
Yep. One thing that you asked me before the show about this one was, should you have a sales goal?
Yes.
And
because you hear strategy, you think, got to have a goal to have a strategy. Strategy to what?
Yeah,
the goal.
You should have a goal, but the hard part is if you haven't sold in this manner before, it's hard to have a baseline sales goal. So like,
That's
I think
realistic.
where I am with it is I say go a month or two and see what it looks like. Then now you have some baseline data where you can start saying, this is what we should be selling per week, per month, per quarter. But it's hard to pull that out of thin air.
Right.
So I think my advice on this one is just be patient with it. Set up some, you know, I think you should be having goals for what activity you're doing, not necessarily how it's selling, because the activity will lead to sales, and the sales process will convert if you're doing it right. So at first, just track activity, make sure you're doing the work on a consistent basis, then start tracking revenue after a month or two.
That makes so much sense because that also should inform exactly what activities are worth continuing doing versus which ones aren't paying off. So, yeah.
So you've got the what figured out. I think the next real key here in a simple sales process is the where. In terms of, I think two parts of this. Where are the consumers that you want to meet? Like in terms of a customer persona.
Right.
You know, who are they? What are they all about?
Are they hip and are they downtown? Are they trendy? Are they young? Are they in a college town? Is it a tourist? Yeah. where are these people?
Physically located, like this is from the personas thing, and then geographically, physically where they're located too. And what is that market saturation where that is? Are you going to be one of you know, if there's 30 stores and everybody's going there, that could be really great, and it can also be very difficult for them too. So just understand that market saturation. I know a lot of people in certain states, they don't even want to go out to the country to deliver stuff, you know. But the stores that or the farms that do go out there, they can sustain,
fetch a higher price, and they become a sort of trusted supplier because there's such less competition for that business.
Right.
So you have to understand, where are you going to be competing? Are you going to be competing in a saturated market or in an underserved market? And that means both for your customer personas as well as your geography.
Yep. And I think when you talk about geography, that leads you right to a real barrier, which is the delivery time and cost.
Oh my God,
so,
yes,
you know,
especially in certain states.
Yeah.
I mean, this might not affect everybody, but to some degree it does.
It has some bearing everywhere.
Yeah.
Especially timing. A lot of people don't appreciate the fact that if somebody's expecting a delivery on a certain day and a certain window of time and it shows up 5 days later, that's not good. So having that consistent timing and dependable delivery timing, I think is really, really important.
Yeah.
And then with that goes cost. If all of a sudden the cost of doing that makes it so you don't have profit anymore, or your price on your product has to be so high that it's not competitive anymore, that needs to be factored in, because that can kill your business. You can do everything right, but now it's priced wrong and SOL.
Yeah, exactly. And now you put all that work in for nothing.
Yep.
That's such a good point. And it feeds so perfectly back into the what, you know? So what are you selling and where is it in the market? Make sure that delivery costs are and time, resources, whether that's an in-house person or you know, a third-party service or through the mail, whatever it is, it's got to be factored into your what is the where.
Yep. Those two things, the what and the where, to me are real foundational, because I feel like that's the work that you have to do and the understanding you have to have before you even pick up the phone to make a call or get in the car to make a visit.
Yeah, because if I'm correct, this hasn't been the sales process yet.
No.
There's been no selling going on.
Yeah, so here comes the sales process. This is the how. And again, I want to keep this easy, because to me, a sales process initially is about consistency and momentum. And just repeatability of a process that happens the same way all the time, whether it's you doing it or other people that are on your team. It all has to be the same. So creating the how in terms of a simple approach that everybody can get on board with and do day in, day out it can be overwhelming, it can be confusing, and if you make it too complex, then no one does it.
Right.
Because they can't follow it. So please make it easy. Keep it simple to start, and you can always add to it as everybody gets comfortable with it. So,
not to mention, keeping it simple means that if something isn't going right, you'll be able to find those kinks and work them out faster and sooner than this long, complicated process that you're like, I don't know, there was a major breakdown by the end, and I have to go back 50 steps to figure out
We've done that. I mean,
of course we have.
That's how we know about this one.
Yeah.
We made it too complex before. So keeping it simple is very important, and you're going to thank yourself later for doing that. The first thing I'd be looking at, though, is now you know what you're selling, where you're selling it, how many stores are there. So the number of stores in that territory, we'll call it, that's going to help you to figure out how many people you need on the sales team to have the right amount of touches to build that momentum with your prospect base. So I don't care if it's full-timers, part-timers, 1099, direct employee, sales agents. I don't care about what method you choose or what works best for you there, but you need to have enough touches with the stores to build that sales process and to get stores in your pipeline.
Yeah.
You know, if you're touching a store once every 90 days, you're not going to have much luck.
Right.
But if you're touching them every other day, that's too much. So you have to find that balance of which right, and we have opinions on that, and we can help people work through that. But the fact is, you need, you know, once you know the number of stores you have, that tells you how many people you have to do the right things in the sales process.
So that's really resourcing appropriately.
Resourcing, Now you start the process itself in terms of creating a series of steps that takes you from initial contact to hopefully you have a sample going out, a sample follow-up to see how they like the samples, and hopefully you take an order out of there.
That's
and if
the goal.
not, you have to call back to take the order and keep working on that close. Now you get to close, you're not done. You're just getting started because your next job is to get reorders.
That's right.
And that's where the money is. And that's where the momentum of a reorder that happens every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, that's what you're going for. The first sale is great. Congratulations. Don't pat yourself on the back too hard though, because you're not making any money on that first sale. It's the second, third, 10th sale
because
that you're making.
In that first sale, in what you're getting in that first sale, that dollar amount is all the time of those resources that went on those sales calls, the sampling, the mailing, the what, all of those costs are kind of sunk in that first sale if you don't let the momentum build and get repeat sales. Because you want to spread out those kind of one-time expenses across as many sales as possible. So you've got to make sure you're keeping a customer.
Great point. And keeping the customer involves keeping your data. This is a matter of like just some quick notes on a phone interaction or on a visit. Any of that sort of data that the sales team collects should go in a centralized location because that data is your data.
So you don't want it with the vice president of sales. Like that is not the person that has all of that data.
In a notebook or in a bar napkin or something like that.
Exactly. In his head is his black book or her black book or whatever.
Or even all the sales team themselves, because sales team, they come and go.
Yes.
So the last thing you want is your data to go when they go, and now you have zero historical data on who they talk to, what the store is all about, all those different things that are important. You want to make it so that at any given time, you can look in the system somewhere and see what's happening with a particular store.
Yeah.
So that data, collecting and organizing the data is vastly important, and that's what a professional does, frankly. I mean,
and I think it's important to know that data doesn't just inform, it's not information, it's information about every sale and every touch, and it informs the sales process, but it also informs the relationship. You know how often they like to talk to you, you know what problems they've had in the past. So you've got to keep that centralized and accessible to you as the owner.
Yep. Yeah, I agree 100% with that. Pro tip here, use technology to your advantage. Things like GrowFlow, LeafLink, they have some great built-in functionality that let you collect some of that data in their system in a central location like that, but also see what types of sales reports are built into it, like who hasn't bought in the last 30 days, who hasn't bought in the last 60 days, who hasn't bought pre-rolls, like all kinds of stuff like that help you to tailor your sales approach. So take advantage of that. It's right there for you already in your system.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the simplest way to explain having a sales strategy, you know, and honestly, just that last part, that how, was the meat of it. And there's a lot in there, and there's a lot.
The cola.
It's a lot of information, you know. So we're just going to do what we do. We're going to roll it all up and give you a couple of quick hits on this blunt advice.
Number one, know what you're selling and be real about it. Have a realistic view of what you're selling versus competition.
Yeah. Number two, know where you're selling. That means making sure you know who your customers are, where they are, what that market and the competition looks like.
And number three, have a sales process. Create something simple that can be repeatable and consistent with you and your whole sales team.
And I'll say number four is make sure you collect data and use it to re-inform your process when you have to tweak it.
There you go. Well, we want to hear from you, so please give us some blunt feedback by emailing us at bluntadvice@infusedmedia.io.
I'm Francesca.
And I'm Mike.
And in the time it took for that fifth dentist to finally give in and recommend Trident gum, you got some blunt advice.